Thanks for having me, Scott. No, I mean, we do talk about it a lot. I guess to use the evergreen word again, I guess it's an evergreen topic. It is something that we all need to worry about. It's funny. I was actually talking with a group yesterday about Form 1099s and tax reporting and this kind of thing, and I think that topic, making sure that you send out IRS forms 1099 and that you don't get penalized. It's funny, that topic sort of inevitably leads into the question of, well, what kinds of income have to be the subject of a 1099, and what happens if you issue a 1099, but of course it turns out that the worker really wasn't or shouldn't have been an independent contractor receiving a 1099 and should have gotten wages. What's your exposure? And of course the answer is it's pretty big. Yeah, no, and I think that is a good place to start. Certainly, those are the biggies. Income tax withholding and Social Security tax, or actually more broadly stated, would be employment taxes. I think I listed 10 different things to worry about here, but we can sort of group several of them together. Income tax withholding is the biggest in terms of dollars, just because obviously income taxes are bigger than employment taxes in terms of dollars and percentages. So, I mean, just to be very clear, so if you have sent a 1090, let's say, Scott, that you've hired me as an independent contractor to do something, you send me a check, you send me I know this is a ridiculous example, but you send me a check, you send me a 1099 at the end of the year or the beginning of the next year, and then it turns out that the IRS or some other agency says, really, Rob Wood was your employee, Scott, and sending a 1099 did not discharge your duty, you should have withheld. So basically the 30% or whatever it is, based on the amount of income and tax rates that you should have withheld, becomes your liability. And you can try, and there's a way to do this, to prove that I actually paid my own taxes on it, and that can reduce much of the exposure, but not all. You still have a significant penalty liability for failure to withhold. So that's a frightening liability, I think, to anybody. Well, and if you take maybe it sounds like a silly example, but if you multiply it times many, let's say it's not just one person, but it is a class of hundreds or even thousands of workers, and which, I mean, it does happen where you may think, if you're the employer, and let's not make it you, Scott, let's make it a company, make it a little more realistic example, a company, and it's got workers, let's say, all over the state or all over the United States, doing software programming or something remotely, where they are doing it from their office or their home or on the road, wherever they are. And the company thinks it's not controlling any of these people, not exactly telling them what to do. It's just saying, sort of like piecework, please, here's this video file, please edit it, or please program computers to do X, Y, or Z. I'm paying only for this job. You can work for anybody else. Obviously, we have to talk about some factual nuances to sort of set the stage. But whatever the case, the company might well believe, and might be reasonable, that it is just paying contractors. But if it's later determined that it was really controlling these people in ways that one can only control an employee, then all these liabilities kick in. And of course, it may not be simply one quarter or 1 year. Employment taxes are usually calculated quarterly, every 3 months. It may not be 1 quarter or 1 year, it might be multiple years before this is caught. And that can be pretty scary to companies. Yeah, and one of the things that I tried to address in this article is sort of what happens, because you tend to think, and just as I'm saying, you tend to think of this as sort of a an Armageddon kind of a thing. Well, what happens in the event of an earthquake or a typhoon or something, and you want to guard against it, try to prevent it, and if it happens, try to reverse the sort of course of nature and that's often my job. If I was hired, it would be to try to convince the IRS that they're wrong. So you fight about that. I mean, that's the big issue, and hopefully you win. And so you don't have to think about what all the costs are. But if you lose or if you settle it or something, then Scott, you're absolutely right. You have to go through, worker by worker and figure out what the withholding tax would have been, what the employment tax would have been, and those become the liabilities that you're trying to avoid.